Fallon to try to stop the absolute atrocity of having the Department of Justice make sure they understand that what was going on here in District of Columbia with the discarding of human remains, of lives, precious lives, which seem to have indicated the possibility of crime being committed in violation of law. We have laws on the books to make sure that we do not continue to carry out the barbaric practices of partial birth abortions or late-term abortions. And we need to make sure that the laws are followed. And we've seen the continued evidence that's mounted on that, and just so thankful for all of the groups that are here today and all of the groups that have been so involved with making sure that we're exposing the truth and exposing what's happening. This goes all the way back to my time when I was the first Assistant Attorney General under Attorney General Ken Paxton, and we were seeing those videos, the horrific videos from Planned Parenthood, what we see in the total crass disregard for life. I remember my godson, who is alive today, and his mom, my dear friend, was told that she should abort him because a scan showed, some separation in the hemispheres of the brain, which turned out to be false. But if she made that choice, my godson wouldn't be with us today. It's the way she described it. The doctor came in with this cold callous, like you're almost ordering at Starbucks, just said you should go get an abortion. We are standing against that kind of callousness against life. We are united to continue to advance the defense of life. And I'm so proud to be here with these great individuals who are standing up. But we're going to continue to call this out. We need to protect these individual lives. These 5 precious lives deserve to be respected. And we're here united to say that should be done. And again, I appreciate my colleagues, and I'm going to turn it over to my friend Andy Biggs.
I thank Chip for leading on this. Done a great job. It's great to stand with so many pro-life advocates. We all recognize every life has value. Every life. We're all created in the image of God. And I thank all of those who stand with us today. The DC5 abortion case is horrifying, period. Full stop. Horrifying. When we consider that anyone would use the barbaric practice of partial birth abortion, we must discover what happened and hold those individuals accountable. Killing a child, let alone 5, through a partial birth abortion is a crime under federal law. The Supreme Court of the U.S. upheld the federal ban on partial birth abortion in 2007. And both the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department and Biden's Department of Justice chose to ignore any potential evidence of crime for 2 years. The MPD and DOJ's investigation was insufficient. It was inadequate. The DOJ's effort to dispose of these bodies without conducting an investigation is simply malpractice, and it is wrong. Based on evidence collected at the time of recovery and the disturbing photos shared, these children appeared to have likely suffered through the procedure of partial birth abortion. We need to further investigate all of this. We need hearings. We need proper burial for these children. We need to respect their lives. The House Committee on the Judiciary, which Mr. Roy and I sit on, has jurisdiction over Washington, D.C. criminal law and federal law enforcement pursuant to House Rule 10. Last week, Mr. Roy led a letter, and I joined him on it. Appreciate that. Sent a letter to the MPD and D.C. Mayor to preserve these remains. And then on Friday, the D.C. medical examiner honored the request to preserve these babies for the time being. That's a step in the right direction, but these bodies must be preserved, answers must be had, further protections must be invoked. Thank you for being here, and I will just conclude by saying Americans deserve to know what's happening right here in the nation's capital, the destruction of human life. With that, I'm pleased to turn and yield this microphone over to my friend, the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, Representative Bob Good of Virginia.
Thank you, Chairman Biggs, and thank you everybody for being here today to discuss what is actually a difficult topic, and it illustrates where we are as a country, that we would even have to talk about this. But to lay out some of the facts that brought us here specific to this press conference, in March 2022, progressive anti-abortion uprising activists claimed to have obtained a box from a whistleblower that contained 115 aborted children from the Washington Surgery Clinic. facility operated by the late-term abortionist, Dr. Santangelo. 5 of these babies appear to have sustained injuries, suggesting they were killed using the illegal partial birth abortion method, which I won't describe at this press conference. Or perhaps they were born alive and just abandoned to die, one of the two. Title 18, Section 1531 of the U.S. Code makes partial birth abortion illegal. Thousands of pro-life activists called on the D.C. Metropolitan Police to investigate this gruesome slaughter of these innocent 5 babies. Investigate their killer, Dr. Santangelo, and to give these little ones a proper burial. D.C. Metro Police dismissed them as legally aborted medical waste and refused to perform an autopsy, investigate the murder, or seek justice for these 5 children. The DOJ has directed the D.C. medical examiner to destroy the remains of the bodies of the DC5. And I'm thankful to our colleagues here today who advocated, who stepped in the gap, Chairman Roy, Chairman Biggs, and Congressman Fallon. These babies before that never had anyone to advocate for them, and the very law enforcement tasked with protecting the most vulnerable in our society that has become complicit in covering up the cold-blooded murder of these precious lives. The Washington Post, citing 2 anonymous sources, reported in 2022 that the D.C. Medical Examiner's Office again had no plans to conduct an autopsy. And all that had been publicly said by officials about the legality of these killings, that the 5 babies' remains were recovered, but they were aborted in accordance with the D.C. law, which allows abortions up to 9 months. So again, I want to thank my colleagues for intervening, for everyone gathering here today in the name of the most precious, most fundamental of rights that we have, the right to life. And we're calling for transparency for how these babies were killed. The American people should know that federal law was broken right here in this Washington, D.C. in these tragic cases. We all know life begins at conception. The science confirms that, period. We should protect life from conception, let alone to investigate and hold accountable those who may have perpetrated the most heinous of abortion crime, or even allowing babies born alive to die there in the so-called medical facility. So I join my colleagues calling on the House and the Senate to call for an autopsy on these 5 precious Americans who were not afforded the liberty that we enjoy today. With that, I yield to my friend from Texas, Pat Fallon.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you all for coming today, and thank you for my colleagues. We're here to stick up for those that don't have a voice, and we must get to the bottom of what really happened to the DC5. And just in context, in 2022, the remains of 115 babies were found outside a DC abortion clinic, and 5 were victims of either late-term abortions, or they were allowed to be born and then they were abandoned. I can't think of anything, as my good friend Bob Good said, more heinous or more barbaric. And it's really about as bad as it gets. Soon after the discovery of the remains, Congressional Republicans in 2022 cried out and demanded autopsies and an investigation. Fast forward, no autopsy, no investigation. You have to ask yourself, why? Are we a country that has a rule of law or not? Does the Justice Department actually dispense justice? I think those are very fair questions. And with the emergence of new evidence, I led a letter that had 44 of my Republican colleagues sign on last week, because we need to protect those that are so vulnerable. And we demanded that the DOJ halt the medical examiner's plan to dispose of the bodies and conduct an investigation. So we are glad that, at least for now, they haven't disposed of the bodies. But doctors have looked at these victims. These are murders. This really, honestly, doesn't have anything to do with abortion. This is about murders. And yet, nothing's been done. So the big question is, why has Biden's DOJ refused to investigate? What are they hiding? And who are they protecting? The fight isn't over. The Biden DOJ has already ignored the issues for the past 2 years. We need to bring them to light. And it's high time Congress conduct its own investigation. Because the DOJ, if they won't seek justice, then Congress, I think, is compelled to. Enough of the stonewalling and enough of yet another act of deception by Merrick Garland's Justice Department. So I want to thank everybody again for being here, and my colleagues for fighting the good fight. And I think that heckler was from the DOJ. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me introduce my good friend, Chris Smith, who is the co-chair of the Pro-Life Caucus.
Thank you so very much. And thank you for your leadership. Thank you to my colleagues for the leadership. Thank you to Teresa for her bold leadership on this issue. Where is the compassion? My name is Chris Smith. I'm from New Jersey, 4th District. Where is the compassion? Where is the outrage? Where is the empathy for 5 precious children who were brutally slaughtered by abortion? Where is the justice? Why the cover-up? Under absolutely no circumstances should the DC medical examiner discard the bodies of 5 innocent children whose lives were taken in such a barbaric manner. If the DOJ is not going to fulfill its duty to investigate potential federal crimes committed against these child victims, then Congress should immediately take up its own investigation and demand, at a minimum, the preservation of evidence. When they were alive, these babies deserve to be treated with respect and compassion. Now, after their violent slaughter, justice must be tenaciously pursued with a thorough investigation into the details surrounding their brutal deaths. No cover-ups.
From the DOJ too?
Remember Kermit Gosnell? He butchered babies and stored them, warehoused them, and was found guilty in 2013, and he went to jail. There are Kermit Gosnells all over America. Predators, child abusers, exploiters of women. Will Americans ever be told the horrifying details as to how and how often abortionists dismember, decapitate, and chemically poison innocent babies? Don't destroy the evidence. No cover-ups. We demand justice. We're here.
For those that are even pro-abortion that might be here today, I think it's important to note that Dr. Angela was actually had performed a botched abortion that was so badly done that the woman died. They found fetal tissue within her lungs. And so if you are even advocating this, you have to understand that this person has hurt other people and he's indeed broken the law. But I want to also put out a public request for help because we are having issues with getting someone that will conduct the autopsy to determine the cause of death. The reason why these children have not been able to be buried is because of that. People are afraid of losing their medical license, their examiner license here in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding areas. So if you know anyone, please refer them to any one of our offices so that we can do that. We've had people from the community step up to donate vaults and caskets so that we can have a funeral service for these children. But when you look at those photos and you see what is done, you know, especially as a new mother, to understand that this individual performed an abortion to where if this was in a hospital, this child would have essentially lived, that one of the children was actually suffocated in their own amniotic fluid. It's inhumane. You know, we have certain practices in this country, and to cause and inflict pain like that is something that I don't think anyone standing in this crowd can get behind. So we ask for your help. Please help us find a medical examiner to conduct these autopsies and we can get a proper burial. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Teresa Bikovnik, the founder of PAAU and who individual who co-discovered the DC5.
Thank you all for being here. I want to extend my profound thanks to Representative Roy and to all of the members who have come today to lend their voices courageously in defense of these children. In March of 2022, myself and Lauren Handy went to the Washington Surgery Center to help mothers in crisis. But instead, we recovered the remains of the DC5 unexpectedly, who were headed for an incinerator to produce electricity for the city of Baltimore. Pulling their broken bodies from that box was the most viscerally heartbreaking experience that I have ever had. This is a seminal moment for the pro-life movement, a moment that is so palpable and with so much power that it can change the course of history forever. 5 babies were murdered in our nation's capital, and their killer continues to kill today, just 2 miles from here. These babies are to the pro-life cause what the Nepal girl was to hastening the end of the Vietnam War, or Emmett Till to sparking the civil rights movement. Will there be justice for the 5? I want to introduce Jamie Dangers, the legislative director of Susan B. Anthony Prolife America. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. It is a privilege privilege to stand with heroes like Teresa, who have shown such courage in exposing the brutality of abortions here in our nation's capital. And I want to say the names that have been given to the DC5. Their names are Angel, Christopher X, Harriet, Holly, and Phoenix. They have names because they're children. They're human. And their lives were cut short by a late-term abortionist, Dr. Santangelo, 5 blocks from the White House. These children, Angel, Christopher X, Harriet, Holly, and Phoenix, should be toddling around right now, causing chaos and laughter like all toddlers do. That's what they should be doing, because they are children. Instead, their bodies are lying cold, awaiting, we don't know what yet. We want autopsies and full investigations to uncover what look very likely to be federal crimes of partial birth abortion and infanticide. It is very easy for people who support abortion, for pro-abortion politicians and for this administration to talk about reproductive freedom. These are the faces of reproductive freedom. When you allow reproductive freedom, you allow Angel and Christopher X and Harriet and Holly and Phoenix to be killed in brutal and horrific ways. Their blood is crying out, and we're giving voice to them today. And we are demanding justice for them and for the many who have not been found, but whose bodies were similarly destroyed in this clinic in Washington, D.C. And I want to introduce to you Penny Nance, the CEO and president of Concerned Women for America.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to the members of the press that are braving the cold coming out with us today. Thank you so much. This is really important. I'm the president and CEO of Concerned Women for America. We're the nation's largest public policy organization for women. We are pro-life. But let's be clear here, you don't have to be pro-life to be with us on this issue. I think that this is something that everyone should be able to stand together on. This is infanticide. You know, Teresa told you about being there that day, and I so appreciate Jamie repeating the names. These were human beings. If you believe in human rights, you need to understand what happened and stand with us today. These little children, and if you have the stomach to look, and honestly, I don't think everyone should, because if you are recovering from the trauma of abortion, you may not be ready to look. But on concernedwomen.org's website, we have a video called So You Think You're Pro-Choice. And it shows the pictures of these little children from as small as the size of a dime, but you can still see their little arms and legs. These are human beings. What we're talking about is the other end of the spectrum. Babies who are almost full term. And you can see that their little bodies have been desecrated. Their heads collapsed in because a partial birth abortion clearly was performed. Early in my career, one of my first things that I worked on in Capitol Hill was the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act. And I was a young, bright-eyed 20-something showing members of Congress with a medical model baby what happened in a partial birth abortion. And they were disgusted to the point that Patrick Kennedy voted with us. This was a left and right issue. This is exactly what they were trying to guard against. It is illegal. It is a violation of federal law, and Santangelo is basically operating as Kermit Gosnell in Washington, D.C. It has to stop. I have friends that work in the medical community at Georgetown Hospital. They see the damage that he has wrought all the time. He is a madman that is being allowed to perform late-term abortions on little babies that you must see. It's absolutely despicable. But I also want to add one thing. I am so grateful to be here. I'm so proud of Chip Roy and others that have stood up on this issue. And I'm so grateful to be joined with Teresa and our progressive friends who understand human rights. But I also want to bring up one other thing. I'm grateful for Chip Roy for introducing the repeal of the FACE Act, because it is being, at this time, weaponized against pro-lifers. And Lauren Handy, who was there at this moment, shockingly, was arrested under FACE and sentenced to 11 years in prison. We have got to change the what's happening right now under the Biden administration, under DOJ. We've got to stop weaponizing FACE, and we've got to get to the bottom and start enforcing the law on partial birth abortion ban act. So thank you so much. And after me is Susan Derechik from Students for Life.
Thank you, Penny. My name is Savannah Deretich, and I'm the Government Affairs Coordinator with Students for Life Action. The pro-life generation demands justice for the 5 aborted infants and so many more who lost their lives to abortion in the heart of our nation's capital. Students for Life Action's President Kristen Hawkins stated, if these 5 fetuses, these 5 innocent children, died from an act of infanticide or unconstitutional partial birth abortions, people must be held criminally accountable. Students for Life Action calls on DC Police Chief and Congress to do the job that neither Biden's Department of Justice nor DC's mayor seems inclined to do: investigate late-term abortion in DC. We are told that the city medical examiner has no plans to do the job required and determine how the babies died, and that DC Police Executive Assistant Chief of Policy claims that these 5 fetuses were aborted in accordance with DC law. How can they tell anything of the sort without an autopsy? We need to know if those babies drew a breath and then were killed outside of the womb in an act of infanticide. We need to know if the disreputable abortion vendor in question used an illegal partial birth abortion to end a life. It's of vital public interest to know whether illegal means are being used to end the lives of babies late in pregnancy, especially when you consider late-term abortion businesses operating here. As Charlotte Lozier reports, a Planned Parenthood mega center performs abortions up to 19 weeks and 6 days gestation, while Washington Surgery Clinic advertises abortions through 27 plus weeks, and DuPont Clinic, a referral center for high-risk abortion cases, performs abortions through 31 weeks of gestation for any reason. Capital Women's Group, associated with infamous abortion doctor Stephen Brigham, advertises abortion up to 36 weeks of gestation. Additionally, pro-choice groups report that a DC hospital performs abortions through the 2nd trimester. No one needs to tell us at Students for Life that DC Mayor Muriel Bowser is biased in favor of abortion when you consider that she sent police to arrest 2 of our students for chalking Black Preborn Lives Matter. But we have not gotten anywhere close to stamping a case closed on these deaths. Chief Conte, please bring justice to these 5 preborn citizens of the district who deserved better. These 5 fetuses, these innocent preborn children, deserved better. We must save others from suffering the same fate.